Did you know you can grow your own peach trees from seed? And it often doesn't take as long as you might think to produce some incredible peaches, like these. And while we've experimented in the past with some different ways to start peach trees from seed, I also want to cover today how to get them to grow into a well-shaped and productive tree in those following years after you start your seedling. So let's start at the beginning with the peach seeds. And you might be wondering, why bother growing a peach tree from a seed? Why not just go out to a nursery and buy a grafted peach tree and be done with it? And you certainly can do that, it can be a good option, but all of the peach trees that you've seen so far in this video and every peach tree on my property except one is a tree that I grew from seed not all that long ago, and they're now producing lots of peaches. And I'll continue doing this because I've found it to just be such a good method. It's completely free and you get results surprisingly quickly. I've had peach trees fruit in as soon as 2.5 years from seed, and that tends to be kind of the quickest case. More likely around 3 years, I would say, to get your first fruits, and your tree will just get more productive from there. The good thing about seed grown peach trees is that the fruits that you end up getting tend to be the same, if not very similar, to the fruits that you started with. As for where to get your seed from, I would recommend going to either a local farmer's market or getting a seed from a friend who grows peaches in your area, because it's more likely to give you a peach tree that's going to thrive in your particular climate, and you're more likely to get a variety that's a bit more of an older, maybe even heirloom variety like these ones that I've got here. And those will often give you pretty good results and give you fruit that are very similar to the original fruit. Whereas if you get your peach seed from the supermarket, for example, that peach might have come from a different climate than where you live, and they tend to be more modern hybrid varieties that may give you slightly more varied results when it comes to the actual peaches the tree produces. Not to say that they will be bad results, they might still be perfectly good, but I would tend to get a local variety if you can. As for getting peach seeds to germinate, they do have some interesting anatomy for us to take a look at to understand how to have success with these. So on the outside you have this stone, and then if you crack that open, on the inside you have this almond-shaped seed. That seed is covered in a thin coating, and what's important to know about each of these layers, including the embryo within the seed, it has abscisic acid in it, which is something that prevents the seeds from sprouting and causes the seed to stay in a period of dormancy. And it needs to go through some winter chilling in order to germinate. And the reason these seeds have this adaptation is because they are more of a cold climate fruit. So if you imagine when the fruits are ripe and they fall off the tree in either the summer or the autumn, if the seed was then exposed to the ground and it grew straight away, it's not going to be long before it's winter, and then it's this tiny little sprout that has to suffer its way through winter and it might die. Basically, it prevents the seed from sprouting in a time of year that's not optimal. But the cold temperatures are important for the seed, as this will help to break down those hormones that are within the seed and the moisture can get into, and then when spring comes, it will be able to sprout, giving it a nice long season to grow. So this natural period of winter chilling is called stratification, and this is what we need to mimic if we want to grow peach seeds. My favorite way, and the way that I've had the most success with, is by cracking the seed out of this pit, taking that little almond-shaped seed, and then I plant it into a pot. Just keep it moist over the winter time, and usually right at the very beginning of spring they will sprout. That's what works for me. If you want to do it artificially, like especially if you have a winter that's maybe not quite as cold, what you can do is just put these seeds whole like this into a bag of soil or even a jar of soil, seal that and place it in the fridge for around 3 months over the winter. Then when you get them out and plant them in the spring, they should just pop up nice and easily. And of course, the other option is just by either planting them directly in the ground like this, or even throwing them in your compost bin. I had my chickens have some peaches, and then they buried some seeds, of course, as they dig around. And then I had some peach seeds just popping up on their own in the springtime. So once you have your seedlings sprouted, you can either leave them in their pots for that first season and then plant them out the following winter, or if you wanted to, you can plant them straight in the ground that first season. And what I've found is that the trees that I plant in the ground within the first month or two after they sprout will grow much larger than the trees left in the pots that first season, and they'll also fruit much quicker too, by about a year. Though I don't mind leaving some of them in their pots because I usually have more time in the winter to plant things out. So I want to show you what you can do with these to get them into a nice shape. So you'll notice this one here just has these little leaves and buds kind of coming off the sides, and it's just growing mostly straight up. So what's good to do is just remove all of these ones down here. And I even just am going to snip off these two little ones that are coming off the side. So what I like to do is just have about at least 1/2 meter to 1 meter of trunk before I let it branch out. So this has still got enough leaves to photosynthesize and continue growing, but I've just gone through and removed these lower ones. You'll notice these ones here are actually branching out, which is a bit different. The reason for that is they got a little bit dry a while ago and the tips actually died back. You can see a bit of a brown branch here on the top. And the same thing would happen if you snipped the top out of a tree. It would kind of direct that energy on these lower buds and they would start to turn into branches. So ideally I would have cut these off a while ago because it's wasted a bit of growth here. But I'm just going to come along, snip off all of these little side branches all the way up. Not quite all the way, but I'm actually going to just take all of these off as well. Like that. And just tidy up that little tip there as well. And there we go. Hopefully that will then kind of put the energy out here and it will kind of continue growing upwards and outwards. And then I'll be able to use these side branches up here and choose the ones that I want to end up turning into the branches that come off this tree here. What you will find though is that this will next spring try and put out more of these little leaves and buds out the side of the trunk. So try and catch them early before they turn into branches and just knock the little buds off and keep that trunk clear if you do want a tree that has a bit of a trunk before it branches out. So I'll show you what the next stage would look like. So here we have one of the peach trees grown from seed, and all I've really done with this, aside from planting it in the ground, was in the springtime I did keep removing any of the new growth that was coming off the trunk because there was quite a lot. And then once it got to about this height, which is just under 1 meter high, I took out the top, which has caused it to branch out like this, which is what we want. So with peaches, what you want to go for is an open bowl shape or open vase shape, where the sunlight can get down into the tree and it also gives more air circulation as well. So that can help to reduce disease and stuff like that. It doesn't get so humid and damp down in there. And so once you take the top out and you get these branches starting to come out from the side, what you'll notice is the ones nearest the top are going to grow a little bit more upright, and any that are further down will grow at more of a 45-degree angle. And those are generally the ones you want to select to keep. And so you'll notice here, this one's growing quite upright. These have a little bit more of a angle, and any that were further down, which I have actually knocked off, would have grown probably at an even better angle for what we want to go for. But these are still small enough to train. So come on in and take a look and we'll see what we're going to do next. Okay, so we've already got 5 nicely spaced branches, which is quite good. And this one here is the biggest one and it's growing a bit more upright. So I would almost be tempted to take out this one. And then these ones are having good spacing and also have a bit more of a better angle, and I can just train them down a bit. But this one out here is actually growing straight out towards the driveway, which might not be the best position, whereas this one's on an angle. So I think I'm actually going to take this one out and then just train these down a bit because I can still bend him into a good position. So firstly, I'm going to just straighten the trunk of the tree onto this piece of bamboo. Now I can tie this one down to the angle that I want to go for. And I've got these bamboo stakes to pull these ones down to the angle I want as well. So I put the bamboo upside down, so it's got these little stems kind of pointing downward that I can tie the branch onto. And I've got these tree ties, so just do a gentle loop on that to hold it in place, and then I can just bring it down. That looks good for now, and I can always adjust this a little bit later if I need to. Alright, so I am happy enough with the placement of those branches, and it's just this one that's got to come off now. So come in nice and close to the trunk, leaving a little bit of a collar there just to heel it over. So you can chop these right back to like pretty small if you want, and that will definitely help to strengthen the branches up. I'm probably just going to cut it a bit further out though, and just make sure wherever you cut it back to has a bud that's facing the direction that you want it to grow. So this bud is positioned on the outside of this branch, so it can grow sort of out this way and continue. Any that are facing kind of the the middle that you don't really want, chop those out. And yeah, that's bending downward, don't really want that. And then any that are like, well, that one's going towards the middle, but any like this that are long, again, just chop those back as well. And that will stiffen the branch and it will grow out wherever the bud is. And that one's going to come out this way, this is going to go out that way, and then this can go sort of that way. So it's going to create a bit of a fork shape, I guess, going off this main one. And we will get other growth coming off this next spring that we can kind of work on and select exactly how we want it to grow. So just going to go around and do that for all of these. And as for peaches, they fruit on 1 year old growth. So when you are doing your overall pruning, once your tree's like more mature and stuff, make sure you keep on some of that growth that grew that year. And you know, that's gonna make sure you get peaches. Now this is the bigger one. So we're gonna cut this back quite significantly. If you're not sure how far back, you can just start further up and then have a look, and you can always chop further down if you need to. Get rid of this inward growing one, shorten these back. That will do for now, and can always chop a bit more off as it grows. Don't worry too much about making mistakes because you will learn as you go, and also they're very forgiving trees. Like I had a seedling about this high growing in really long grass, and it accidentally got mown over to the ground with a lawnmower. And I just chopped it cleanly with some secateurs at ground level, and then a new branch came up, which I then trained into a new tree, and it's doing fine. So they're very forgiving, and it's more about the gradual adjustments you do over time with the pruning and not having to be too worried about getting it perfect. So I thought I'd show you this tree here as well, because I've pruned this one a little bit differently as a bit of an experiment. You can see it pretty much doesn't really have a trunk. The lateral branches just come out really close to the ground, but still forming this nice bowl shape. I do quite like that you can just get right inside the tree just like this. You can do all your pruning, harvest your fruits, and yeah, it's quite nice being in here. So this is still a pretty good option to consider, especially if you have a garden where you want to keep things a bit lower and a bit easier to manage for you. So now to show you the oldest peach tree that I've got on this property. This one here is about 5 years old, and one thing that you'll probably notice with this tree is the contrast of the leaves compared to the other leaves from the other peach trees. This has such a different color, and at the moment the leaves are faded because it's late summer or actually early autumn, and they've gone more of a purple sort of green color. Whereas earlier in the springtime when the leaves are nice and fresh, they are a very deep purple, and they just look so stunning in the garden. They add such an amazing contrast. The variety is called Hiawatha peach, and these grow really well from seed. They often just pop up in random places in your garden, like in your compost. It has lots of fruits on it at the moment too. They have almost a purplish orange color to them, and then on the inside are orange flesh. But we'll cut those open soon and give them a try. So let's go through and pick a few of these. I've also got a couple of peach trees of this variety as well, and I don't even know what variety it is. And the reason for that is that I bought a couple of little peach tree seedlings that I was going to use as rootstock peaches. You're right, darling. And I chopped the top off and added, I think, a plum variety onto it, and the graft ended up failing. So I decided that I would just let this peach tree grow and we'll see what comes of it. And this is what I've ended up with. These kind of small to medium-sized peaches with a red blush to the skin, and they have a white flesh and a really sweet flavor. So I'm stoked with this. And it just shows that, you know, if you want to, you can just grow any old peach tree from seed and see what happens, and you might end up with some nice results. And it's also just a reminder as well to talk about grafting, because if you want, I could always come through, chop a branch off and add another peach variety onto here. Maybe I want to add like a plum onto this branch and then end up with a one-of-a-kind tree with multiple varieties all growing on the single tree. It's a good skill to practice, and you can have fun with it and a bit of an experiment. We've got this variety here as well. This is a sanguine peach, also commonly called a black boy peach, although that name seems to be a bit more outdated nowadays. This is a really awesome heirloom or heritage variety that grows really well from seed and gives you really consistent results. I've grown multiple generations of these, and they always provide awesome peaches. The fruits on the inside are just such an incredible blood red color, so you'll see that shortly. But these have a long history here in New Zealand. They have been growing here for well over 100 years, and I believe they originally came from France. So we'll go through and pick some of these and then taste all 4 of the varieties. We'll start with this bright orangey one. Not too much fuzz on this one, thankfully. This one might be a clingstone variety. Oh, it's not coming apart too easily. So let's just cut around it. There we go. Really nice, bright orange flesh. And you guys know how I feel about peach skin, and this doesn't actually have hardly any, so I'm gonna go for it. Goosebumps. That's good. Tastes like a peach, I guess. Wouldn't say it's overly sweet. It's nice and juicy. There's a little bit of astringency, so I think these ones might need to be quite soft before you eat them. But very beautiful peach, and yeah, it's good. Oh, that skin though. This one here is from that rootstock peach, so let's give that one a try. And this comes apart much easier, so it's probably a freestone peach, which is good, and a nice white kind of a flesh. I don't want to be distracted by the skin, so I'm gonna somewhat peel it. Oh my gosh, yum. That is very sweet, much sweeter than that one. This almost tastes like a canned peach. It's got that very intense sweetness to it. Oh, I really like that. On to the next one. And this is the Hiawatha peach, so the type that grows on the one with the purple leaves on it. Another freestone one, that's great. And really beautiful, juicy, orange colored flesh. And this one has very velvety skin. Ugh, let's peel that as well. And I'm sorry I can't really review the skin for you guys because it's just not my thing. Let's put that there. Here we go. Very silky smooth, very juicy, nice sweetness. Not as sweet as that one, but still very good sweetness. I really like this. This is definitely one worth growing, in my opinion. Being that bright orange color is really stunning. So yeah, it's a good one. Okay. Now onto the Sanguine peach. And if you've never seen on the inside of these, you are going to be amazed. But these are probably the most velvety of all of them. You can just see how even touching that is just gives me the shivers. Okay. Oh, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful red flesh. Incredibly stunning. Comes apart very easily. This is probably the most freestone of them all. Look at that. Just comes right out super easily and just leaves you with delicious peach. Wow, so this one's quite a different sort of a taste. It's very peachy, but it has a sweet tanginess to it. The tanginess is actually very nice, as opposed to these ones, which just have a very kind of stronger sweetness, especially that one. And it almost is a little bit berry-like. That's kind of what it reminds me of. I really like this. It's such a good deep flavor. They're really good in crumbles as well. And also you can preserve these peaches. So there's many ways that I can use these and enjoy them for many months to come. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you in the next one. Catch you later.